Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian Lad, and I just watched What If Episode 6 at 0.25 big speed. This episode is called What If Killmonger Rescued Tony Stark. Well, they could have easily named it What If Killmonger Backstabs Everyone He Ever Works With. That's how crazy this episode was. And I've actually done the counting. There were a total of 6 betrayals from Killmonger in this 32 minutes episode. That's one big betrayal every 5 minutes or so. I mean, he could give Palpatine a run for his money. Anyway, without wasting any time, let's begin our breakdown. Now for this episode, Michael B. Jordan, Jon Favreau, Chadwick Boseman, Angela Bassett, Andy Serkis, Don Cheadle, and Paul Bettany all come back to reprise their respective roles. One of the reasons we can relate to the MCU so much is because no matter how small a role is, Marvel always ensures the original actors are portraying them. For example, this scene in Endgame where Alexander Pierce walks into the Stark Tower, imagine if Robert Redford hadn't played this character. The continuity would be broken and therefore diminish the authenticity of the story, which is exactly what makes this episode so great. Paul Bettany even came back to do voiceovers for less than 5 lines. Anyway, the episode opens in Afghanistan the exact same way as it did in Iron Man back in 2008. Even the 2 soldiers getting killed who were guarding Tony, the animation has been directly ripped from the original Iron Man film. But in this one, instead of getting blown by his own made missile, he gets saved by Eric Killmonger, who literally hurls the missile even without the powers of Black Panther. This immediately establishes the extreme strength and ability of Killmonger. Then we get a glimpse of what was supposed to happen, how Tony was destined to become one of the greatest superheroes of all time. But sadly, this event changed everything. Now I loved how Marvel overlapped the Killmonger theme with the Avengers and made it into one epic background score. Tony then holds a press conference answering questions regarding the incident in Afghanistan. Here he publicly announces Killmonger as the new head of security, and this obviously shocks Pepper standing in the background, but not more than Happy though, who says it was supposed to be him.
This is such a load of bull. It's supposed to be my promotion.
Now one thing I'm really enjoying in this series is how much attention is given to each character's expression. For example, in this very scene, Pepper gets shocked, but Happy becomes a bit sad. We can visually see the differences in their expression. They could have easily given both of them similar facial expressions, and nobody would have complained, but they still made sure the story is dictating everything, not the other way around. And no, if it wasn't an animated show, I wouldn't have counted this as a detail. We then see Christine Everhart for the second time in the show after episode 4. And yes, Leslie Bibb did the voiceover for the character as well. Now she asks Killmonger what was he doing in Afghanistan in the first place, and to everybody's surprise, Killmonger admits he was there to kill Tony Stark, not save him, and he was working in an operation inside the 10 Rings. He even reveals that the operation was funded by none other than the COO of Stark Industries, Obadiah Stane. My guy even brought receipts to show as proof. As a result, Tony kicks Obadiah Stane from the company. Now, even if we take the sacred timeline into account, it makes perfect sense that Killmonger was in Afghanistan at the time of the attack. Here's why.
Killed in America, Afghanistan, and all this death. Just so I could kill you.
Now, instead of keeping Killmonger as the new head of security, Tony promotes him again directly to COO to replace Obadiah Stane. Now, in this party, listen to what Tony and Killmonger say before cheering with their drinks.
Terrorists, corporate raiders, Maxim cover models. What do they all have in common?
They came for the king and they missed.
They came for the king and they missed. This is a famous line from the show The Wire, which also starred Michael B. Jordan.
You come at the king, you best not miss.
Now it's true, innit? I mean, if you manage to strike at a king, you must kill him, otherwise get killed yourself. We then learned that Pepper had asked Rhodey to do a background check on Killmonger. So Rhodey says Killmonger has done a pretty good job for a kid from Oakland. And of course, in Black Panther, we had previously seen that Eric did grow up in Oakland City in California. Eric has been highly trained in assassinations, which really scares Pepper. She says everyone comes to Tony to get some sort of advantage, and it's her job to figure out what exactly it is that they want. But even she's confused with Killmonger. She's not able to read his motives or predict any of his moves, and that's what concerns Pepper the most. Cut to Tony's garage where he brought Killmonger along with him. Here we see a series of sports cars, just like we've seen in Iron Man 1, including a Ford Flathead Roadster, which originally inspired the colors of Tony Stark's suit. Tony then reveals that he has been working to miniaturize the Jericho missile into a portable firearm. Jericho was the reason why Tony went to Afghanistan in the first place. He showed a live demonstration of what it can do and sold it to the US military. I mean, look at the sizes of the missiles, and let's not even talk about the destruction they're capable of causing. So in this universe, Tony has figured out a way to miniaturize all of that into the small portable firearm. Killmonger then says his father was killed in a gang violence. He tries to gain Tony's support emotionally. He puts on a facade and shares his plan of creating a drone army to obsolete human soldiers. Now notice what Killmonger does just moments before sharing his plan.
Forget it. What? It's just my doctoral thesis.
As you can see, Killmonger actually breaks the fourth wall and makes direct eye contact with the audience. Him looking right at the camera, or the audience in this case, was a direct hint that he's manipulating Tony to turn his idea into reality. Tony of course agrees to work with Killmonger. He thinks he's paying off a favor by doing this. We then see the design of the drone made by Killmonger, which even Tony thinks is a little too bold. Now the design looks really similar to Gundam. Gundam is a fictional Japanese military robot. Now Killmonger explains why he designed it after Gundam.
What? I like anime.
Now the fun part is Michael B. Jordan is a massive anime fan, so I'm sure he might have had something to do with it. We then see Tony a bit struggling with his drinking habit, and throughout the episode, his drinking kept on increasing by the minute. This could be a reference to the comics where Tony did have an issue with alcohol, even though in the first ever look of Tony, we saw the camera solely focusing on his drink. But later on, the MCU never really paid any great attention to it, and that's why I find What If so captivating. It sticks to the comics no matter how dark or evil the story gets. Tony and Killmonger then work on building the drone. He uses the same tech as we've seen in live action. He then puts Jervis at the wheel, saying human pilots mean human error. And in Avengers Age of Ultron, we saw the sticker on the Quinjet that says, Jervis is my co-pilot. Killmonger then trains the drones by teaching them combat moves. Now the visual look of the drones also resemble the drones Ivan Vanko made in Iron Man 2. We get a failed operation test, which is again a callback to the original film. Now when they both get frustrated by their failure to create a sustaining power source for the drones, Tony comes up with an idea of creating a miniaturized arc reactor. A miniature arc reactor of course is what kept him alive after shrapnel was embedded in his heart and chest in Iron Man 1. And notice when Tony talks about creating a miniaturized arc reactor, he even puts his hand over his heart. Now to prove that I'm not reaching here and this is genuinely a detail, I'll play the scene for you.
If we could miniaturize an arc reactor... Oh, that's a dumb idea.
Notice when he has the idea, he puts his hand over his heart, but as soon as he drops the idea, he removes his hand as well. Killmonger then suggests using vibranium to power the drones, which actually shocks Tony, as he knew the only piece left of vibranium was used in making Cap's shield. Now the next detail could be a bit far-fetched, but hear me out. Notice we never see the necklace on Killmonger, as he keeps it hidden for the most part, up until he needs to reveal it to achieve his mission. But in the main timeline, he always has it hanging on his neck and never tries to hide it. So I think this hiding of the ring in this universe could be a metaphor for him hiding his real motives. In this timeline, he never really shares what he's up to, unless it becomes absolutely necessary. So yeah, I think it's a reach, but let me know what you think. The vibranium then creates an energy field around them, which is directly taken from Iron Man 2 where Tony creates a new element. But this much vibranium of course isn't enough to power an entire army of drones. So Tony proposes going to Ulysses Claw to buy more vibranium from the black market. Pepper thinks it's not a good idea, so Tony says how about we send Rhodey instead. Notice even at the office, Tony was still drinking. Or should I say he already had one, considering the glass seems empty. Now if I just rewind back a few seconds, I love this exchange between Tony and Pepper.
No, Tony. Absolutely not.
I'm sorry, are you allowed to say that to people in my tax bracket?
Tony.
Are you allowed to say no to people in my tax bracket? Meaning this version of Tony learned no lesson as he wasn't held captive in the cave. But if you think about it, Playboy Tony is supposed to talk like this. In fact, he did in the main timeline, but that was for a very brief time. With today's culture and time, I don't think people would have appreciated Tony's character and simply jumped to conclusions and cancel him. If we learn anything from seeing the entire arc of Tony, that is everyone deserves a second chance. Nobody is perfect. We then meet Ulysses Claw in the salvage yard. It's the same place where Claw hides out when we see him for the first time in Age of Ultron. Ulysses shows Rhodey a Dora Milaje's spear, as well as tons of vials containing vibranium. But that's when the ship gets infiltrated by T'Challa aka Black Panther. He takes out each and every man of Ulysses Claw. That too in some fashion. Now the slow-mo shot over here shows just how fast Black Panther is. I mean, this guy didn't even get enough time to look at Black Panther. He's still gazing upwards towards his front, while Black Panther over here has already reached the vicinity from where he can easily throw a punch. I think this is the first time we're seeing Black Panther utilizing his speed in a hand-to-hand combat. T'Challa asks Rhodey to let him take the vibranium where it belongs, but enters Killmonger, who uses a sonic taser which instantly neutralizes both Rhodes and T'Challa. We saw a similar version of this weapon in live action as well, but of course every weapon in this universe is either drastically bigger or smaller than the live action one. Now I've seen some people asking how did Tony not know that Killmonger took the sonic taser with him in this ship. Well, don't forget Tony was the one who made him the COO of Stark Industries, so Killmonger has access that doesn't require oversight from Tony. Now Black Panther, who is already struggling with the sonic taser, then literally gets shot with a sonic blast, and this eventually kills him. Killmonger then rips the glove off of T'Challa and uses it to smash this door open. He says,
This I'm really feeling.
This was foreshadowing how he will eventually take on the mantle of Black Panther. He then kills Rhodey, and we come to know Ulysses and Killmonger were in on it together. That's why Ulysses slowly started walking backwards without anybody noticing, and Killmonger was the one who spread the word to the Wakandans that Rhodey will be here to buy vibranium. So bringing T'Challa here and killing him was all part of Killmonger's plan. The Dora Milaje then carries the body of T'Challa away in a casket, while the military takes Rhodey's. Now in T'Challa's casket it says Wakanda forever. I've actually checked the Wakanda letter so I can confirm it. Tony then exposes Killmonger by showing him holographic footage of the murders he committed recorded by Jarvis. This does seem like the same holographic technology that Tony used in Iron Man 3 to investigate who attacked Happy. Tony is of course again drinking, but notice he has a bracelet on this time. He didn't wear it until now. This was foreshadowing that he completed making the drone and can control it through this bracelet. Now Tony says something here that is probably one of the heaviest lines in the MCU.
Call the cops. Still won't get here in time to save you.
Yeah, well, police are the law. I want justice.
Tony then uses these metal panels in closing the room so that Killmonger cannot escape. I'll be honest, the way these metal panels were closing kinda reminded me of Endgame, where Tony did the same in the Avengers compound just before Hulk's snap. Now against the drone, Killmonger was in fact struggling, but then realizes he has to change the pattern of his fight, because the drone already knows all of his moves from its training. Now in the process, the drone rips off Killmonger's shirt, and it reveals the marks that he made for each kill. Killmonger spots this vibranium spear, which he uses to take down this drone. He then throws the spear towards Tony and says he genuinely thought he wouldn't have to kill him. After Tony dies for like the 4th time now, giving some really tough competition to Vision, eh? Killmonger uses a knife and adds another mark to his collection of scars. This is the first time we visually see him adding a scar on his body. The next day, General Ross shows up and seizes all of Tony's assets. Happy and Pepper both get suspicious of Killmonger, as security footage as well as Jarvis's memory were all wiped clean. And who has access to wipe all this? That's right.
Oh, I don't know, 3 murders in 2 days and 1 man at the center?
So a character that looks like Gwyneth Paltrow again finds herself in a situation that is really similar to the plot of The Talented Mr. Ripley. I wish Gwyneth Paltrow came back to do voiceover for her character so I could phrase this whole point in an even better way. Killmonger then pulls up another chess move as he convinced General Ross that Tony's murder was done by the Wakandans to take revenge for T'Challa's death. So General Ross commands them to begin production on the automated drone so they can go to war with Wakanda. Killmonger then again succeeds on his plan, producing hundreds of drones with the help of the US military, that too with money coming in from Stark Industries. If you think this was a genius move, just wait until the end of the episode where he pulls off even greater moves. Ulysses then shows Killmonger the path to Wakanda, and of course as soon as Ulysses became useless to him, Killmonger killed him as well. He then drags his body to Wakanda in order to prove his loyalty, as he just killed a man who used to steal from Wakanda. King T'Chaka welcomes and accepts Killmonger with open arms, while Shuri and Ramonda are a bit reluctant. And notice Shuri is relatively shorter here than the rest of them. If you found it odd, don't forget it's taking place back in 2008, so Shuri was still a kid. But what's different in this universe is the fact that Shuri has these white dots on her face all the time, whereas in the main timeline, our Shuri only had her during battles. Killmonger then warns that the US military is sending an army of drones. I mean, this is the 6th time he's betraying someone, and this time 2 entire nations, so he's always playing on both sides, which guarantees his victory. I mean, how could you lose when you have the ability to switch sides whenever you want? To be honest, if this plot was made into a 2.5-hour movie with a lot more character developments, it would definitely be a smash hit. And notice how advanced Wakandan tech is even in 2008. They could see the holographic visuals of the drones as they approached the border. Killmonger then says they have to let the drones come inside their force shields, and once they're all in, closing the force shield will disconnect Jarvis from all of these drones.
These people murdered your son. Even if there's only a chance I'm legit, isn't it worth the risk?
Now kudos to the writers who wrote these epic dialogues for Killmonger, which are so compelling and at the same time hits right where it needs to. Now the battle begins and everything happens as Killmonger predicted, but that definitely is in the end, as he now secretly takes control of the drones from Jarvis. Now listen to the way Killmonger says Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever!
It just doesn't sound right, does it? He doesn't say it with as much conviction as he needs to. I think that was intentional from the creative team and Michael B. Jordan. I mean, Killmonger is not really in this for Wakanda. All he wants is power. Now the way the Wakandan army activates their shield is again directly taken from Infinity War, and this rhinoceros that Killmonger takes a ride on was also shown in the end battle of Black Panther. And notice when Killmonger attacks the drones from the side, even though it made Ramonda happy, but if you think about it, that's kind of Killmonger's policy, isn't it? He doesn't have to worry about moral grounds, and that's why even though Ramonda attacked from the front, but Killmonger didn't hesitate to approach from the rear end or the side. And notice in the entire battle, none of these drones tried to attack Killmonger, which made it easier for him to save the Dora Milaje and gain their trust. So this proves the drones were in fact under under his control. Again, playing from both sides. Now here's one more incredible detail from this episode, and this is probably my favorite. When Killmonger stands on top of a damaged drone, he drives his spear across the chest of this drone, damaging a few letters of the Stark Industries logo. And notice, if you take out the broken letters, it spells out Stark in dust. And this drone that was built using Stark's resources is also dead. This is probably one of the best Easter eggs I've ever come across in this series. Now, having gained King T'Chaka's trust, Killmonger gets the purple herb that allows him the powers of the Black Panther. Killmonger then meets T'Challa in the ancestral plane, where T'Challa warns him that power unearned will eventually get the best of you. We then see Killmonger donning the golden Black Panther suit just like the movie version. Now over here, General Ross is preparing to deploy the Jericho missiles aiming at Wakanda, and helpless Pepper Potts goes back to her office. But to her surprise, she finds Shuri. Now Shuri came here with proof that Killmonger is the one who killed T'Challa, Rhodey, and Tony Stark. So just like Jervis was able to record footage of this double murder, T'Challa's Black Panther suit did the same as well. But because it's 2008, so I guess Shuri had to do some digging and tinkering with the suit in order to find out what T'Challa really saw just moments before his death. And this is what he saw: his cousin Anjadaka, aka Killmonger, aiming a sonic weapon. And that's how today's episode ends. So in the words of the Watcher, heroes are never really gone. They live forever. And that's it. This would be my breakdown of What If Episode 6 at 0.25 big speed. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this video, grab the subscribe button and turn notifications on. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter to get updates about my videos. Till then, I'll see you lads in the next one.